You're 3 days from the nearest road, deep in a forest that doesn't show up on any map, and the gash across your forearm from a fall this morning has stopped being just a cut. It's swollen now, hot to the touch, starting to weep something that isn't just blood. And somewhere in your bag there's a water bottle, a knife, half a granola bar, but nothing built for exactly this moment. So what do you actually reach for when the only pharmacy left standing is the forest itself? In 2022, on an island in Indonesia, that exact question got answered, not by a person, but by a wild orangutan with a fresh wound torn across his own face. He'd gotten it fighting another male. With no one to teach him, he chewed the leaves of one specific vine growing nearby and pressed the paste straight onto the wound, again and again for several minutes at a time. Scientists had never filmed anything like it before. Within days, the wound had closed. Within a month, it was gone. No infection. That vine has a real name, a measurable chemical profile, and centuries of recorded use in human medicine, which means somewhere, long before either of you existed, something had already worked this out. Here's how far back that something actually goes, and how many times it's already saved a life exactly like yours. There's a name for what Rakus was actually doing, and it's not wound licking or blind instinct. Zoopharmacognosy, animals seeking out specific plants for their chemical effects, not their taste or nutrition. For most of the 20th century, biologists assumed cases like this weren't real, that any animal seen eating something bitter and useless was simply confused or sick or wrong. Wound treatment with a plant, on camera, start to finish, that part was new. The underlying behavior, an animal choosing one specific plant because of what it does to its body, had already been documented before, just never quite like this. Every time this behavior shows up, the same calculation is running underneath it. A real cost, something bitter, sometimes actively toxic, weighed against a real benefit, survival. And the benefit wins. Nobody's doing that math on paper, it's just built in. Because the plant Rakus reached for wasn't random. It's one specific vine, already studied by human chemists for exactly what it does inside a body. And once researchers matched the two lists, plant and effect, the story stopped being cute and started being uncomfortable. Here's what was actually growing in the leaves he chose. Fibroria tinctoria, a climbing vine found across Southeast Asia's rainforests, already known to local healers for treating infection and pain, long before any lab confirmed why it worked. It contains furanoditerpenoids, compounds with measurable antibacterial and anti-inflammatory effects, and protoberberine alkaloids, which act as natural painkillers. Rakus didn't touch it for 3 days after the fight. Then he selected the plant, chewed it into a pulp, and did something no one had ever documented in a wild great ape before. He pressed the paste onto the open wound with his fingers, wiped it back and forth, and finally packed the chewed leaf mass directly over the cut, the same basic motion as pressing on a bandage. He repeated the whole sequence. 5 days later, the wound had already closed. No swelling, no infection, no sign the flesh underneath had ever been torn open. Wild orangutans get injured constantly. Branches, falls, fights over territory, and mates. But across decades of field observation at multiple long-term research sites, this was the first time anyone had recorded the full sequence, start to finish. Isabel Laumer, the researcher who led the study at the Max Planck Institute of Animal Behavior, had spent years watching orangutans and had never seen this exact sequence before. Selection, application, repetition, all aimed at one specific injury. Her team called it the first documented case of active wound treatment with a plant in a wild animal, of any species, anywhere. And Rakus wasn't an isolated eccentric. In 2026, a separate team analyzed 20 years of feeding records from a different orangutan population, more than 12,000 feeding events in total, and found that exact same vine, Fibroria tinctoria, paired again and again with specific fruits known for wound healing and antimicrobial effects in patterns nutrition alone couldn't explain. One orangutan, treating one wound on camera, turned out to be a visible piece of something the entire species already seems to know. Rewind 35 years before Rakus to a different forest, a different ape, and a sickness instead of a wound. In 1987, in Tanzania's Mahale Mountains, primatologist Michael Huffman was watching a female chimpanzee named Chausiku move slower than the rest of her group, lagging behind, lying still on a bed of branches, refusing almost everything she was normally offered. Almost everything, except one plant. She stripped the bark off young stems of Vernonia amygdalina, a shrub so bitter humans call it bitterleaf, and chewed only the inner pith, spitting out the rest. By the next afternoon, she was moving normally again. Huffman didn't have to guess what she'd found. The Tongway people, who'd lived alongside that same forest for generations, already used Vernonia amygdalina for the exact same problem, stomach pain and intestinal parasites, and had for longer than anyone could trace. When researchers finally tested the plant in a lab, they found more than a dozen compounds with real antiparasitic activity. Chimpanzees that ate it saw their parasite egg counts fall by as much as 90%. A sick chimpanzee and a village of humans, separated by nothing but a tree line, had independently arrived at the identical cure. If this were only happening in apes, it might just be a story about intelligence, large brains, problem solving, something unique to creatures closer to human. It isn't. The same behavior shows up in an animal with no brain worth the name, a caterpillar. The woolly bear, the fuzzy larva of the tiger moth, normally avoids plants loaded with paralizidine alkaloids, bitter toxins with no nutritional value at all. Eating too much of it, when nothing is wrong, actually slows the caterpillar down. But the moment a parasitic fly lays eggs inside its body, everything changes. Researcher Michael Singer found that infected caterpillars roughly double their intake of that same toxic plant, deliberately eating something that would otherwise be pointless, even harmful. The toxin barely touches the caterpillar. It kills the parasite growing inside it instead. Infected caterpillars that self-dosed survived at rates 20% higher than the ones that didn't. No memory of a mother teaching it, no forest elder to copy, just a body, mid-crisis, reaching for the one chemical that solves exactly this problem. Proof this isn't a trick of intelligence, it's older than intelligence. Which raises the obvious next question. If a caterpillar can do this, and a chimpanzee can do this, what about the species you actually belong to? The answer was sitting in a cave in northern Spain, in the fossilized plaques still stuck to the teeth of Neanderthals who died between roughly 40 and 50,000 years ago. In 2012, researcher Karen Hardy's team analyzed that dental calculus from 5 individuals at El Sidron and found something that had no business being there: traces of yarrow and chamomile, 2 plants with almost no calories, bitter enough that nothing about them says food. Both plants are still used today for exactly one reason: their medicinal properties, easing pain, calming inflammation, fighting infection. Hardy's team argued the pairing was deliberate, not accidental. Not every scientist agrees on how conscious that choice really was, but no one disputes what's stuck in the teeth, or what those 2 plants actually do inside a body. That single, repeatable pattern, 2 plants, 1 problem, 1 deliberate choice, is the exact seed early human herbal medicine grew out of, long before anyone wrote the first medical text. Long before anyone in that species could read, write, or explain a single reason why, someone in that cave already knew exactly which 2 plants to reach for. So here's the actual shape of it: a caterpillar with no brain, a chimpanzee with no doctor, an ape with no teacher, and an ancestor of yours with no written language, all running the same calculation, independently, over and over, across millions of years and completely different branches of life. Medicine didn't start in a hospital, and it didn't start with a human. The 2026 orangutan study puts real numbers on how far back the underlying behavior goes. This exact instinct, reach for a specific plant, solve a specific problem inside the body, may stretch back over 12 million years to an ancestor shared by every great ape alive today, humans included. It isn't a human invention, it's inherited. So, back in that forest, 3 days from the nearest road, arms swollen and no kit to speak of, you're not actually starting from zero. Somewhere nearby, something already ran this exact experiment millions of years before you needed the answer, and it's still running in animals that have never seen a hospital and never will. You just have to recognize it when you see it.